Hi everyone, thanks for attending this session. So I have with me Joseph from ABI, where he will take us through SBL. However, before we start on that, I'd like to do a bit of a briefing or a bit of a presentation in terms of the remote exam and a bit on the SPCB resources. Okay. We do have quite a lot of content to share with all of you, so we'll start now. So let's talk about launching the remote exam on exam day. So for Australia, we are moving into remote exam for September. So this is just to give you a quick update on what you can expect on exam day. Okay. Now, before we talk about exam day itself on launching the exam, there are some things that I'd like to highlight to you. So this is really a new piece of information, and our website was just updated. Okay. Which is that you now have a 5-minute bathroom break, okay, when you start the check-in process until the conclusion of the exam. So how do you take your 5-minute bathroom break if you need one? Okay, so in this case, what you do is when you're doing your exam, let's say halfway through, you need to go to the bathroom. You just use the chat function and type in the message that you want to leave your desk to use the bathroom. Now, the exam timer will continue to run. So you are not compensated for that 5 minutes if you're running to the bathroom. Okay. Then when you return to your desk, you don't have to wait for your invigilator. Just use the chat function to say that you have returned to your desk. However, the invigilator may ask to verify your ID again. Okay. So I hope that's clear. Okay. Now, it is important that you don't exceed the 5-minute time limit, because that could result in your exam being terminated. Okay, so therefore take that 5-minute break if you really need to. Okay, now then another point which I probably think that all of you have seen our website and know about it, but this is just a quick reminder of what is allowed or not allowed on your desk. Okay. Now, you are allowed a calculator, and you got to ensure that your calculator is included in the photo of your desk. Okay, so that's part of the check-in process that you got to take photo. And there's no scrap paper allowed. So please make full use of the scratch pad function on the practice platform and on the exam day if you need to do working. Okay. So all this information is on the FAQ website, okay, on acccaglobal.com. Okay. I think you have also seen this in terms of the infographics of what could be on your desk. Okay. So you must have a clear desk area, and you can see here typically what it means is one monitor, one keyboard, one mouse, okay? And you can also see a calculator on the desk, and you can also have a clear glass of water or small bottle with label removed. Again, this infographic is on the remote exam website on acccaglobal.com. Okay? So have a look at it, okay, if you're unsure. Now, all mobile phones must be placed out of arm reach before starting your exam. Okay? You'll be using a mobile phone to take photos, okay, during the check-in process, but put it away, okay, while you're commencing your exam. Okay, so the FAQ is updated on a continuous basis. Okay? So I would suggest that you go in and check periodically to see if there are new FAQ being posted. And so that will also support you in your exam preparation. For example, like the first question here that I give you a sample of, like, can I have photographs and pictures on my wall? Now that is a new addition to the FAQ. Okay, so let's talk about launching the remote exam on exam day. Okay, so before you start your exam, so you take a comfort break, okay, before you start, and you're only permitted one 5-minute break once you start your exam. Then set up your work area as you required, as you see in the infographic just now, and then remove any unauthorized item from your work area. You can only launch your exam about 30 minutes before the appointment time. You can't launch it anytime earlier. Okay, so if you try to click the button on launch exam, it won't happen if you are doing it before earlier than 30 minutes. Okay, to launch your exam, you could access your exam planner. Okay, I think you're familiar with this one. Then you choose book an exam. Okay, So it's here in the screenshot. So book an exam. Then you press launch exam. And you then click on book computer-based exam. Click on this one. Okay. And then click begin exam. Now, if you go in too early, the begin button won't be available. Okay, so therefore, again, just check in 30 minutes before your appointment time. Okay, now then you will be prompted to download and run the exam delivery and remote invigilation software before performing the system test. Okay, and the step from here onwards is similar to what you're doing for system test. So you're supposed to then copy the access codes. Okay. Now, once you copy the access code, okay, then you will ask you to input a phone number. So the phone number is important because this is the number that the invigilator will contact you if you have any issue during the exam. Okay. Then it will prompt you, okay, to start the check-in process. Okay. Now, first of all, you must confirm you are over 18 years old. If you're below 18, then your parent or guardian will need to be present. Then the system check will run, and the green tick will appear next to each requirement as it is being verified. Okay. Then you need to take some pictures of yourself, your ID, and your environment. So it's quite similar to what you did for system tests. And that's where you can use your mobile phone to take your pictures. Okay. Or you can use your webcam if you want to. Okay, and this is just instruction on how you should take your picture. Okay, so make sure it is within the oval, and then your face must match your ID. Okay, then you're going to take a picture of your ID. So by ID here, it can be passport, driver's license, or national ID card. Okay. And you have to take 4 pictures of your workspace, front, behind, left, and right. Okay, so when you're taking a picture of the front of the workstation, be sure your calculator can be clearly seen. Okay. Now, then at this point, the check-in process is almost completed. You'll be given a set of reminders of some of the rules, exam rules, and then you're supposed to check to say that you confirm your understanding. Okay, now once that has been done, you'll be reminded to close all your application except for Finder and On View. Okay. So now the check-in process is completed and all the details and photographs submitted will be verified. So this can take up to 15 minutes. Okay, so just wait. If you're waiting any longer than 15 minutes, then contact us. The contact information will be released on the FAQ later. So therefore you need to go back and check it out. And also in our email communication with you, that will be included. Now, then your exam will be launched by the invigilator, and then you'll be asked to read some pre-exam screen. And during the exam, if you need help, use the chat function to get connected to your invigilator. Okay. So I hope that is clear in terms of how you launch your exam. Again, what you see here is a document that is on the remote exam website on acccaglobal.com. Okay, now I'm going to take just a few more minutes just to go through the CBE resources that's currently available to support you if you're doing SP exam, be it SBL, SBR, or AAA or AFM or APM or ATX. Okay. Now, in the case of Australia, okay, your exam is now computer-based because it is done remote, exam at home, whereas the rest of ASEAN ANZ is still paper-based. So this is just a timeline to show when the other countries will be launching CBE. Okay, in terms of the support resources available, okay, so in the ACCA support resources page, okay, if you scroll down lower, there's a learning and revision section. Under CBE preparation, there are 4 short videos, each one approximately about 4 minutes, where it helps you to get ready for your exam. It includes what to think about before your exam day, the exam strategy, how to manage your workspace, and what you could be using in terms of technique to plan and complete your answers. And it's very important that you're familiar with the SPCBE exam environment, and that's where we have the ACCA practice platform to support you. Okay, so so you should actually practice using the platform, okay, before your exam day. Make sure you are comfortable with how the exhibit is looking on your screen. You know how to maneuver them, okay? Because this is what you'll be experiencing on exam day. So you need to be comfortable with all the maneuvers, with how you read the information on your computer screen. And on YouTube, we do have a resource on managing your SPCB workspace effectively. So here we also show you how you can give some guidance on how you can manage your workspace. So have a look at that resource. Now, we now have a one-pager. Again, this is a very new resource that we have just pushed out. So this is a one-pager that shows you, okay, all the various resources available for SPCBE. So you can just click on your paper that you're doing to go into that particular resource. Okay, and we also have webinars in August to support students preparing for September exam. For some of these sessions, they are already over, but it's fine. You can always go to the On24 registration page. Once you register, you can view it as an on-demand webinar. Okay, so that's all I've got here. So I'm going to hand over the time to Joseph, where he'll take us through SBL. Over to you, Joseph.
Thanks, Esther. Hi, everybody. Let me just call up my screen. Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Joseph Ellis. I'm based in Sydney, Australia. I'm the CEO of Australasian Business Institute, and we have been tutoring students of several professional accounting bodies for the last 12 odd years. My background, I'm a chartered accountant, CMA, CPA, ACCA. We have been doing all the work, and most of all, I worked with KPMG and PwC before finally getting onto project management and consulting. And the last 12 years has been predominantly teaching in Australia in the Asian region. We are associated with several bodies, but our main partner at the moment where we use our learning platform for ACCA is an outfit, and I will write it here. The name is Phils, who provide some excellent resources online, which we partner with, and they are based in the UK. They are platinum service provider. And ABI's tutors are supposed to be the most experienced in Australia, but we draw upon various tutoring resources from Asia as well. So that's me in a nutshell, an introduction. And Esther has done an excellent job in the CBE side of it, which means I don't really need to worry too much about that part because she's done an excellent job. But we have a few checklists here that for you to think about on the CBE approach when answering the SBL and SBR examinations. I'm not going to spend too much of time on this because time is limited. I will get on to the strategic business leader side of it immediately. So basically, same thing you have on the ACCA website is reproduced here just for you to tick off. Just something someone mentioned was that it's probably better to move straight onto the Word document and not use too much of the scratchpad. Apparently, the scratchpad is not examinable. So you might as well go straight onto the Word doc because you can always amend it and erase your, shall we say, your deliberations there. Just a little tip that was passed on to me. Let's keep going. And the slides are available. I will give them to Mike after this session. You can always, it's accessible later on. Okay. The main topic today is how we apply corporate issues to real life practical examples, taking into account SBL, because it's a very practical exam and you have to demonstrate that you're ready in a professional capacity to actually implement the things that you learn here. And the whole idea is that you're placed in a situation, a real workplace, and you produce the reports for the management. This particular project that I'm going to talk about is quite topical, particularly with the pandemic. Most of you will be realizing that healthcare is a big deal now. And some of the new developments coming through are, cloud hospitals in the cloud, robotic nurses, all that sort of stuff. And I'm going to be focusing on two examples which are really topical in the case of SBL. Let's keep going down now. Okay, what's the main issue in the SBL examination? From what we hear from all the examiners and constantly that you guys are constantly having this problem is time. You are running short of time. So my focus, everyone, is on telling you or advising you how you can manage your time. And the way I'm going to provide this advice is I'm going to give you something called VE, a very simple mnemonic for you to understand. It's a shortened form for your vision, how it should exist in the organization in which you're doing this projecting, doing your exam questioning, working in real life. It could be a technical framework, it could be brainstorming, but it's a fairly comprehensive checklist. So let me go on to explaining what I mean by this checklist. Now, it's very important, guys, to note that there are some excellent presentations already from ACCA, particularly Sean, that have gone on in the last few days. And I'm assuming you had time to read that. I'm assuming you have done the work on the syllabus. And basically, we are just adding value on top of that to make life much easier for you in the exam, focusing, using this checklist, something that I have developed over the last 12 years, which I'm going to share with you, where you can really focus on the tasks, which are where your marks are going to come from. I'm going to use these two examples. And finally, what is the objective of this roughly 45 minutes presentation? I want you all to become expert exam answering machines, which really makes you pretty efficient professional accountants as well. So if I can achieve that in 45 minutes, I'll be very happy, and I hope you'll be very happy. So let's keep going. Here's a case study. I've cut it down a bit. I've taken it from a past exam paper, modified it to suit this particular, shall we say, this forum. And something you have to keep in mind is you might have to learn to speed read very quickly some of the things. And in an exam, this is the sort of thing that you're going to be presented, but probably in a bit more detail. You get a company, we're going to call it HIC, and we are going to say it's located in a mythical country, Lion Land. Okay. Now it's being developed in a developed country, but the whole idea is that it can be used in neighboring countries as well, which is what the whole project is planned for, expansion. Its main competitive advantage is that it's built on a budget model. In other words, no frills. And this is the famous Porter strategy. Everybody, I'm sure you guys would have studied it. I'm a great fan of Porter. I've been teaching Porter's 5 forces, strategies, all these years, and the concepts, the strategic principles haven't changed much. It's because you're constantly updating it in the new environment. So that's sort of a very quick background, and I'm not going to focus too much on the background because I'm going to get straight into the tasks and how you would approach this type of case study in the exam. So you'll find that in the exam, you're going to have this information, you're going to be given exhibits, and you're given reading time. My advice to you would be skim through it first and get a feel of what this the case study, the project is that you're going to be working on. And here's the approach that I give to all my students, which I've developed over the last couple of years. You can look at it like a technical framework. You can look at it like a generator of ideas, brainstorming. You can basically look at it as anything you like, and you can customize it. But the whole idea is that when you look at any project, you have a checklist that you're immediately making sure you cover the main strategic principles involved. And over the last several years, I find there are certain strategic principles that are vital to understanding and answering any examination on this project. Now, what do I mean by V? V is, I start by saying every organization must have some sort of a vision. The Japanese call it ikigai, the reason for being. Now, I'm sure you guys would have studied all this in the course of going through your syllabus in all the past papers, because SBL is one of the final core subjects. Most organizations have some sort of a vision. They also have some sort of a mission. In my opinion, a mission is the same as a vision, but with a time frame and some sort of a roadmap. Here is where a lot of the technical details come in, and these could range from budgets, forecasts, KPIs, you name it. The point I'm getting at, guys, is the strategies have to be really thought about after you assess the VMO of an organization. Over the years, I found the American style of presenting strategies has been confusing. I prefer calling a strategy something that is needed to achieve a company's visions, missions, and objectives. You'll find some consultants who come and say, what's your strategy? Look, the strategy depends on the vision or mission. So most important point is immediately try to find out what is this organization's vision, mission, and get a feel of it when you're studying the introduction. I'll be coming on to the implementation in due course, but very simply, the V means V for VMOS. Every organization must finally have some sort of a VMOS. They can call it purpose, they can call it reason, the ethical principles, whatever. I have summarized it very simply, VMOS. In fact, over the last 10 years of teaching, a lot of my students like to call me Mr. VMOS, because I always push them back to, have you got a vision in your organization? If you don't have a vision, find out what it is. Now, here's where the E comes in. Every organization, and this is where your syllabus is going to be covered, and I'm assuming you have covered the syllabus, but I'm going to give it to you very quickly how you ensure it. Every organization has some sort of an external environment. Now, you guys would have studied Pestle, Porter's 5 forces, and everything from Porter's Diamond, and the competition, the markets, all come into external environment. Very important rule. This is outside your control. Mostly outside your control. You may try to influence it a bit, but generally most organizations find the external environment is outside your control. And if you look at Pestle, the political factors, economic factors, social factors, technological factors, legal factors, environmental. Now, in fact, they come out with a new one called Steeple. Steeple has brought in ethical factors. So all this is covered in the environment organization operates. Again, most of it is outside your control, but you have to analyze that and keep in mind in your introduction, and when you're looking at a case study in the exam, immediately try to focus on the key factors that arise there, because that will determine the industry that you're operating in, or this project is operating in, whether it's growing or whether it's shrinking. The whole idea is it growing? Is it profitable? And what are the market forces that operate in it? Okay, that's very quickly. I'm giving you a quick rundown on what an external environment analysis involves. Second one is an internal environment. Now, this one you guys will be very familiar, is all what you can do in the project or in the organization, from your SWOTs to your Porter's generic strategies, to your BCGs, to your key success factors, to your strategic capabilities, everything within your control. So far, so good. Please feel free to ask any questions, but you'll find that as I go along, I will be able to cover most of it. This is the S here is what I call strategic options, because from your external and your internal analysis, you can develop, okay, what are the options this company, this organization, if you're working in one, or in the case of SBL in the exam, what are the options open to based on what the exam is providing you from the exhibits and from the main body. It could be using a very simple hands-off matrix, which I'm very fond of using, is do we stay in the same market and just operate with our existing products, try and make maximum use of opportunities, or does this company, in the case of HIC, the hospitals in the clouds, can they go to take all their products and stay in the same market but offer new products? The moment you start looking at new markets, the risks develop. All these are options that you consider, okay? The next one is, finally, most companies, after they do this type of analysis, come up with some sort of a business plan to find out, okay, what are we going to do in the next couple of months, next year, based on these three analyses. That's, in a nutshell, the environment in which I am developing this framework. And the reason I'm calling it a V and a E, just to make it easy so that everyone remembers, is, and I'll come down to the next one, is JVDs. It's very simple. Instead of getting too complicated in all the details, the way I approach a strategy, SBL, yeah, we do strategic global strategy in the universities. I just very simply, guys, try and focus on, have you guys got your VMOS in order? Have you looked at the environment and your external, internal? Finally, what is your implementation plan? And the VMOS is comprised of, very simply, those four letters. The E means you're existing in this environment, and to make it simply, I just call it EXIST. The I is another I here. So between V and E, you're getting some framework which you have to keep on practicing. After some point, you'll find that you don't need to look at a book. You don't need to have any paper. You don't need to have a computer. You can immediately look at an organization and see, okay, this is the space in which it operates. These are its strengths and weaknesses. These are the options it has. Now, let's see how we can implement the business plan. Again, we are moving now to the tasks in SBL, which is very simply implementation, because you're going to be given a task and you've got to finish that in very quickly. So again, to wrap up, all the books you have been having, all the readings, the syllabus you have been covering, guys, very simply, and advising you, suggesting you think about a framework that you keep practicing, and you cover everything to do. The moment you see the project in the exam, you know what to do. And it's basically, it's a sort of a plug and play. Let's go and just keep on becoming an efficient answering machine, which, as I told you, will make you a pretty good accountant too. Okay, now how do you do all this with the limited time you have? And for example, I'm looking at the clock. I got another roughly 30 odd minutes to try and show you how to do a case study. In your case, you guys will have to be focusing on this 200 minutes here, because this is where you're going to be accumulating all your points in the, and in this case, in my presentation, I am going to focus on the tasks, which could be a part of the 200 minutes. The reading will take some time, but if I can make life easier for you and show you how to complete the task fast using this framework, I would have done my job. Just giving you some ideas how we approach it in all the places that we have taught, okay? So let's keep going. Task 1 and task 2. I just taken an old paper and with the help of First Intuition Learning Services, which is the partner we work with, I just modified one to suit the current environment. Okay, so I'm going to take task 1 now, and I'll just go to the next slide and give you an idea how to use this methodology that I have sort of developed. Okay, here we go. When you read this now, what immediately strikes you as interesting? In this particular case, they're asking you to develop. Immediately, the moment you see this task, guys, you're going to get an idea. Aha. So HIC is looking at developing, which means they're looking at expanding immediately. And again, they're looking at another country. Now, what does that mean? They're immediately looking at a different geographical location as well, which is quite interesting. Now, they're asking you for, now this is exactly the task that they're asking you. As operating would be, is currently developing in a different country with a new strategic direction, and they're asking you to come up with the key factors that which it has driven in the past its success. Key things, again, I'm highlighting very key things. The trick here is how do you use this model that I'm suggesting to immediately frame your answer. Okay, let's have a look at this now further, and I'll just clear this up and move my task buttons to a side where it's easy to see. Just a second while I move this over. Okay, here we go. And what is required? The chief business analyst has asked you, so it's your role now as the senior business analyst to prepare briefing notes for the finance director. Again, you immediately know your audience, and I'll be now giving you an idea how you're going to use the VE framework to immediately develop. And he's asking you to discuss the key factors. It has to be successful, and the same success is what has been achieved in the past. So let's look at this very, very critically and looking at the VE model. The moment you see this, what comes to mind? If you're looking at the factors, you're looking at the external factors that have shaped your success. So you're immediately going to the X. You're looking at your internal ones, internal factors. You're looking at what this option here, which is, are you going to expand? And are you going to basically, is it something that you can build on from your past successes? Again, it's very important to go back and see how it has achieved this particular. The moment also you see this, another thing comes to mind. You got all, it's asking you for your professional skills. Now, if you look at the internal factors and how they have contributed to this success, immediately the things that come to would be Porter's diamond. You can bring in all the 5 factors in Porter's diamond and list it and be ready to start answering the questions. And I'll be coming to the 16 marks in a minute. How do you relate the model that I'm proposing to the 16 marks? Okay. You have to prepare. They're asking you for briefing notes. Let me clear that a bit so that we can get some sense out of this one. The whole idea is briefing notes. Immediately, you got 16 marks at 2.5 minutes a mark. You know how much of time you have to spend on this one. And you know that you have to break it up to blocks of 4. Blocks of 4 will be, what are the factors? Again, factors, key factors. So you're looking at blocks of 4 here to be successful. Has it been the fact that they have got their key success factors have been branding, they have managed to establish their brand, and they have managed to build up so much of resources that now their capabilities, they got enough resources and capabilities which they can reproduce in another country. But have they exhausted all the opportunities locally using these key success factors? Again, we are down to the internal resources, the I, and whether we have made use of all the external factors, you have considered that, and have you got your key success factors in place. It could be branding, it could be your channels that you're using, it could be the capabilities that you have developed. All these are going to come in your answer. Again, the focus here might actually be a lot on the internal environment of this particular company, of, in this case, HIC. Consider that it's using the Porter's low-cost model. And where does the low-cost model best operate? In a mature environment in the industry cycle. It has been doing this for several years, and they have acquired this. Now, one important factor to bring in here is, and this is covered under the strategic options, is the element of risk. You can tick off all the factors of risk that have been useful when they were developing their brand locally. Okay, so this is one particular way that you're asked to. You're also being asked, your analysis skills are being brought in there. They're particularly talking about analysis skills, and the moment you're bringing in these skills, you're asked to investigate, you're asked to inquire, and you're asked to consider various options. It's only 3 marks, but still, what are in your analysis, what are you asked to investigate? You're asked to investigate all the models that you have seen in the past. You've been asked to look at the Porter's strategies, you look at its SWOT, you look at in the portfolio, have they managed their portfolio of products particularly well? What are there? And we're back to key success factors. The risk here is, if HIC has been doing so well in this country, do you really think they can replicate and go to another country? And that's something you have to bring out in your answer, the risk factors. Okay, let's keep going now to the next task. So we have looked at the corporate issues and how you would look at it in a practical situation. Now we are going to look at how do you answer challenging examples. And in this case, we are going to look at Daisy, the robotic nurse, which has been developed by another country, and which this HIC wants to look at very carefully at acquiring. So let's have a look at that now. And that is task 2. We're going to task 2, and we're going to see they have identified a company called Daisy Robotics in this other country, and they find, oh, this is interesting. We can add this because we are already in hospitals in the clouds. If we can bring in some robotics here, and in this day and age of the pandemic, these healthcare products are just taking off. Artificial intelligence is coming in because of the pandemic. People are much more aware of artificial intelligence and less reliance on people. This is a topical subject. So let's go and see how we take on this particular task, which is task 2. Now, when you're reading task 2, again, all I'm proposing is make sure you have this framework in mind to tick off. And when you're looking at Daisy Robotics, which is the company now HIC is, and you have been, again, you are required to prepare a report, and you have been provided a fact sheet. It is considering acquiring, it's only considering it. It hasn't made any about this proposed acquisition, and you have to prepare a report. Now, here's the problem. It's going to the same finance director. Now, the audience is something that you have to, from your experience in studying the SCC syllabus, do they want it in in so many pages, or do they want it in bullet points, or do they want a lot of graphs? That's something you would have got a feel on. But considering it's 16 marks, you're just going straight for the key points asked in the report. And you have to demonstrate your evaluation skills. And here's the trick. You need a balanced report, which means you need to have the positives, you need to have the negatives, which means your report has to be neutral, but you still have to come out with a conclusion. And here is where, again, we're using the as I call it, the vision. Has its vision and its external, internal environment, does it match this type of acquisition? It's very important. An acquisition, particularly, guys, has a lot of factors involved. For example, you have to check whether this is suitable. You have to look at the acceptance of all the shareholders. It's in the background information, it's a listed company. You have to check whether it's feasible. And in your conclusion, you have to be very objective. And if it's necessary to say, sorry, I don't think you should be making this acquisition, fair enough. Again, the trick in a proposed acquisition is, has Hicks capabilities, are they overextending themselves? They have been doing very well in Lionland, which is the fictional country we are talking about it, and they're making reasonable money. Is it too risky now going into another country, different cultures, different environment? Again, you can use the same VE checklist that I'm proposing. Does that fit into this proposed acquisition? It's purely an analysis you're doing. And my advice to you is, have a framework, have a model, a template, which you have to customize to suit your own style, that you can immediately analyze this. And I'll give you another few examples of how you work on the same type of analysis. For example, if you get a question like on paperless, now it's the new era after COVID is, there's a lot of paperless technology coming in. People are expecting very little paper to be used in the new one. We're expecting a cashless society. We're expecting people to get used to this paperless work and they won't go back. How do you use this type of framework to analyze a situation like this? And in SBL, it's very clear, you are expected to look at all the ethical issues, the technical models, which I have covered under the external and internal one, and you're supposed to make recommendations. Let's have another look at how you can apply this. Okay. In SBL, you're supposed to be taking a long-term perspective. When I say long-term perspective, under the E, you're looking at the external environment. Is that industry going to grow, or is it going to go into a recession, or is it going to be just dormant? So you have to look at it in the long term. It is outside your control. Again, the whole organization, you're looking at the I, the internal environment, from its people, from all its physical assets, its intellectual property. And the beauty of looking at it from an hands-off perspective is, once you become very good at something, you actually develop more and more resources, because you're being so good at exploiting that market. Those resources are all possible to be used in increasing market share. So when you look at the external environment, look at the internal environment and see, can you keep on increasing market share using those resources? And analyze the resources. The models are all pretty much there. It's a question of you picking the correct model and seeing, and in the case of the hospital, is it any point this company going in and trying to acquire robotics? Relate it to its environments. Again, does the vision and the mission fit this new environment? It's quite a few organizations are forgetting what they are really good at. And this is why I keep bringing everyone back to VMOS. Why is this organization in existence for? If their priority is to deliver good, cheap healthcare products, have they really achieved that mission by now? Why go to completely different products if that's not in line with their established vision? Remember, under stakeholder management, and if this case, if it's a public listed company, those stakeholders are going to be asking lots of questions. And these are the things that you, as the accountant, is supposed to consider to make sure they have a competitive advantage. Again, this relates to the I in the internal environment. Why? Because you may have all the capabilities, but if you don't have strategic capabilities, you're not going to get a competitive advantage. Okay, let's keep going because we are moving back to a reminder of how much of time have we got. And the whole idea is that you're going to be efficient in the examination. Practice, practice, practice. So this framework that I'm proposing requires a lot of practice, guys. And that's the whole objective of my trying to make it easy by converting it into a format that is easily remembered. The V, go back to the vision of the company. What was it originally set for? What was its mission? And all the KPIs, all the forecasts, all the budgets, everything that has been done is to be achieving this mission. So keep that firmly in mind. All the strategies that come in will be dependent on the external environment, your internal environment, all the options that you produced while checking those environments. Let's keep going. These are the tools that are recommended. Apparently in the exam, you can have access to them. Now, I'm not too sure how many of these will be immediately available, but some of the things that you probably have to be efficient at using in the exam is this types of, are these exactly the same things, and keep reading them. And if you go back to the introduction, you'll find these will be all listed out there. So again, I've come to the conclusion very quickly because I want to go through and do a few more, look at this again from another point of view, especially the healthcare sector, and come up with some sort of a conclusion which you can use in the exam. This is the whole framework that I'm suggesting. Very simply, the V and the E. In the introduction, try to find, when you're reading your introduction, guys, try to get an idea what is the vision of this organization. Try to get a feel from it, from whatever you're reading in the exam. Find out from the facts that are given in the exam paper, has this got some sort of a time frame? Has it got some sort of a roadmap? Because when you're producing a report, you have to make sure that that is what you're going to refer to it. These are in the fact sheets that you will find, and these will be from all the KPIs and budgets and everything that is given in the exhibits from 1, 2, 3, 4 onwards. Okay. Again, when you're looking at the external environment, it will be connected to the exhibits that I mentioned. A lot of that will give you the industry growth. It'll give you the analysis of the market, the competition. So within one page, I'm trying to encourage you guys to come up with this framework so that you won't have to be at a loss for the technical framework and for the strategic tools. This one, there's plenty of stuff, but the key ones you'll be looking for obviously will be the SWOT. And for example, in the case of this hospital in the clouds, have they plugged in all, are they using their strengths? Have they made sure that they have used their strengths to take advantage of all the opportunities? Have they looked at their weaknesses and made sure that they are not affected by the threats? All that you'll be covering in the internal environment. You'll also have a good look at Porter's generic strategies again and see, are we doing well in what we were originally formed in our mission to be a budget player, no frills player? Are we trying to get into a differentiated market? Because the moment you start changing your vision and mission without authority, sometimes senior managers do that, you've got a problem. The stakeholders are going to be asking questions, number one. And number two, all your objectives have been towards the budget model, the business model, which, by the way, is how your business plan has been formed up. This is where you get very creative. Once you have looked at the external environment and said, yep, we are having growth, we're having profitability using Porter's 5 forces. Growth was using PESTEL and any other indicators. And you have looked at the competitive landscape. You then have seen, have you got sufficient resources there now to take on the new expansion that you're thinking about? And when you look at this new expansion, it's absolutely vital to look at your resources, your risks, and whether bottom line is the cash involved. If that has been agreed and you think there is the potential of a business plan being prepared, fine. So essentially the business plan is how you would answer that report you're making is essentially a type of business plan where you're proposing, look, why don't we stay here in our own country and make use of all the opportunities we're having there. Now, when I talk of implementation, be very, very clear, guys. Implementation is finally where people will recognize you. You won't get any, and let me clear this up a bit, this messier a bit. You won't get any recognition for preparing a fantastic business plan. People will finally remember you only if you have delivered on the business plan. Now, when I say delivered from a SBL context, you are going to have to deliver on the tasks that are required in the SBL examination. And that is where you're going to be scoring your marks. So again, this framework is going to be used for you for delivering in the examination. And customize this. You might find, look, I'll focus mainly, I can see Porter's 5 forces here, or maybe I can look at PESTEL here using the exhibits that have been given to me. Fine. You might find it's easier to get the internal resources, but finally, you have to deliver on the tasks efficiently. So again, the whole thrust of my delivering this to you is so that you have some sort of a framework where you become really exam answering machines. It becomes pretty like automatic. The thinking of, yep, what's its vision, mission, and immediately look at this external environment and come up with a plan. And obviously you will then become pretty efficient professional accountants as well. And that's it in roughly 35 minutes, how I would approach SBL with a framework in mind to get at the tasks. And I'll just go back quickly now, if you don't mind, to that introduction of the company. Here we are. And I can take on some questions, but before I take any questions, can I tell you that you can use this same framework when you're studying this introduction. Immediately you can see for yourself it's listed. When you see the word listed, you know that there are much more stakeholders involved than a private company. Immediately you know that will push you towards the stakeholders in the internal environment. You know it's a developed country. That immediately pushes you to the industry life cycle, which is something you have to consider in the external environment. Its competitive advantage has been its pricing because it's a no frills. So the VE approach, which has this checklist of tools, can be used at the introduction and primarily in the task stage, but you can use it even at the introduction stage. This is purely a technical framework, a checklist, a brainstorming, idea generating, whatever it is. And as I demonstrated to you, you're going to be short of time. Most of the examiners comments in the ACCA exams are students have been short of time. And this is exactly the point why I'm trying to get some sort of give you all guys shortcuts or tips how you can, get efficient in this time. When you see currently leading hospital brand, what does that mean? That's a key success factor. What does the key success factor mean? It falls under the internal environment. So you can tick off, okay, there's a VMOS, there's external, internal, and you can just keep ticking off as you read this through. Fierce competition, several homeworks. Now, for example, in this introduction, it wants to look at web-based technology, but in a different country. So again, guys, try to use a framework so that you won't have to be searching around too much. And once you start practicing, you'll find that immediately the V, the M, the O, S gets ticked off, the X, the I, and the exist. So the vision has to exist within an environment. And that's why I'm just very simply summarize it all with VE so that you won't forget any of the strategic principles and you can customize it and be ready. We got 5 minutes. I'm sorry if I took too long. I'm ready for any questions. Anyone likes to ask any question, please feel free to shoot off into the chat box. So if I can find the chat box, that will give me an idea. Oops, just a minute. I seem to have lost the chat box. Oh, here we are. Okay. And if there's any other questions, if you have, please feel free. I've given our email right at the bottom here, everyone. If you need anything in further, you can always check with our website at abibusiness.com, or you can send me an email here. I'll be quite happy to answer any questions. We are having a couple of exam workshops, hopefully if we can before September, but definitely in December. Please feel free to contact us if you need anything. Oops. Had to rush through that because of the insufficient time, but yep, okay. It's quite interesting how when you do these strategic subjects, you find that there's so much of stuff you can bring in under here if you want to be really creative, and you'll find, look, do we increase market share? Do we stay where we are? Do we go and take over another company? Can we increase market share by mergers and acquisitions, or shall we restructure and just stay in the market we're operating in? And it's quite interesting with this pandemic. Immediately there's opportunities that are coming in e-learning, in paperless technology, and it's going to be an interesting world post-COVID. But as far as we accountants are concerned, we'll just have to keep going on and making sure we deliver. Again, make sure that finally, at the very end, whether this project, whatever they are planning, whether it can be delivered. Just a thought to keep in mind, because finally that's where you will be remembered, when you deliver the goods, which is part of the business plan. Okay, I think our time is up. If there's no questions, we can, yep. Mike, if there's no questions, I'll ask you to close the floor. Thank everybody.
Yes, Mr. Vimos, Mr. Joseph, thank you very much for the presentation. Since we don't have any questions yet, to our attendees, please take note of the email address of Mr. Joseph. So should you have any further questions that may arise in the future, feel free to contact him directly. Again, thank you very much to our speaker, and to our attendees, thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. All the best. Take care. Bye.